All right, guys, welcome back to Unit 3. Let's bang it out of here. This will be a nice quick one, okay? So with Unit 3, we're looking at the Bill of Rights and the application of the Bill of Rights, especially with court cases. Ton of court cases that you got to know for this unit, so we're going to make sure that we know them, okay? So first, let's go through the Bill of Rights. The purpose of the Bill of Rights, remember, is to protect us from the national, the federal, that new central government. Is not to protect us from the states. That's going to be important as we move through here, and we're going to see that shift. But we're not going to understand that shift unless we have that straight right now, okay? That we have that protection from the national, that newly formed government doesn't count for the states, okay? So there we go. So that's our Bill of Rights. And this is going to be a kind of an enumeration of some civil liberties, okay? And so if we look at this, we're going to have in Amendment 1, we're going to have the 5 freedoms. So we've got the free speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of grievance to express your grievances, and freedom to assemble. Second Amendment, we're going to have right to bear arms. Third Amendment, no quartering of troops. Fourth Amendment, no unreasonable searches and seizures. Fifth Amendment is going to be no double jeopardy. You get due process. You don't have to be a witness against yourself. Eminent domain, things like that. The right to remain silent, remember. Sixth Amendment, right to a speedy trial, right to a lawyer, right to a public jury in criminal cases. Number 7 is a right to a jury trial in civil cases. 8 is no excessive bail, no excessive fines, and no cruel and unusual punishment. 9, then, remember, is going to be, just because it's not listed in the Constitution, just because it's not in the Bill of Rights, doesn't mean you don't have the right to do that. So it is an enumeration of unenumerated rights. And then, of course, number 10 is going to be that all-important one, that devolution. If it's not listed in the Constitution, we didn't give the power to somebody else. It goes to the states and to the people. Okay, so now we've got that. So now we want to break down our First Amendment. The First Amendment, remember, we're going to have, I think, 5 different court cases of our required court cases from the First Amendment. So the first one, freedom of religion, we're going to start with. Remember, now that we've gotten past 3.2, we don't say freedom of religion. Because remember, freedom of religion is broken down into 2 parts. So if you were asked for a clause, for example, on the AP exam, you're not going to say freedom of religion. You're going to say the Establishment Clause, or you're going to say the Free Exercise Clause. So the difference between those two, the Establishment Clause is the federal government cannot go ahead and have a Church of America. We can't establish a religion, okay? We also cannot favor one religion over another. And so with the Establishment Clause, what we are looking at for our court case is going to be Engel versus Vitale. In this one, remember, we've got school prayer is what's going on at the beginning of each school day. We have a prayer being said. It's said to be a non-denominational prayer, which means that it's not one particular religion's prayer. It's just kind of a recognition of a higher being and a prayer to kind of, for wisdom or whatever it was. I don't know the exact prayer, but that's what's going on. And so some parents got upset and said that they did not want their children participating in this. So several options were thrown out. Well, they could sit in the hallway. Well, now we're singling people out because of their religion. Didn't seem a very American thing to do, right? And so we go through different things, and what would they decide is this is the government siding with people who believe in one God, who are monotheistic. And so there are going to be people who are atheists who believe in no gods. There's also going to be people who believe in multiple gods. And therefore, we are favoring one religion over another in a government-sanctioned place. And that's not going to be allowable. And that's what we're going to see here based on the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause. So that's our first one. Our second court case is then going to go with free exercise. Free exercise means you have the right to kind of practice your religion the way that you want to, the way that you've decided is best for you and your family, okay? So Wisconsin versus Yoder is going to be the court case that follows with that. So remember, Wisconsin has a law that compels students to go to school until they're 16. Well, the Amish community said, we don't want them to go with that. We want them to get some education. We want them to learn how to read, learn how to write, learn how to do math, some things like that, okay? But they kind of wanted to end at the end of junior high, which is like 13 to 14 years old. They said that compelling them to go those extra years is going to expose them to things that are against their religion. They said it's going to expose them to more chances for to alcohol, to sex, to drugs, all these kind of impure things that they don't want in their community. And they said they've learned enough for their community, and they want to start now teaching them the religious side of things, as well as the work ethic in the Amish community. And so the Supreme Court sides with the Amish, with Yoder, and says that an individual's interest in free exercise does outweigh the compelling interest of the state to have people go forward beyond, I believe it was 8th grade. Okay, so both of those, remember, we cannot say freedom of religion. For the first one, for school prayer, we've got to say Establishment Clause. For Wisconsin v. Yoder, we want to talk about the free exercise clause. Okay, moving forward, like I said, we're moving kind of quick today. You know a lot of this stuff. This is easy stuff. So topic 3.3 is going to be freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, remember that there are protected speech, symbolic speech, hate speech, the fact that spending money is considered a form of speech. We also have unprotected speech. Unprotected speech would be speech that are like fighting words, anything that is going to incite imminent lawless action, that's not permitted. And we also have obscenity is not protected. Libel and slander are not protected. I think those are the ones that we covered here in class. Looking at my notes real quick, I don't see anything additional. So remember what's protected, what's not protected here, okay? And so remember that what's protected, what's not protected often falls down to time, place, and manner, okay? So here on this video, nobody's in the room, I say the word bomb, everything's fine. I'm not going to have the federal government busting down the door. Yeah, we're not going to have the federal government busting down the door to arrest me for saying the word bomb, okay? If I am about to enter an airplane and I say the word bomb, time, place, and manner absolutely matter now, right? Because I said this as I'm going, and now there's a threat. Now people are on edge. And so now we're going to have a problem, right? And so there's things you can say, things you cannot say at certain places. Time, place, and manner. So if we go straight from here, if the Schenck versus the United States, we have a person who is handing out leaflets to try to get people to he's against the draft, okay? Where in World War I, he's against the draft, and he's trying to get people to not enter into the draft, not go forward with their physicals or whatever it is after they're called up for the draft. And why do they do that? Well, they do that because here what we're looking at is the United States government is saying this is a threat to the United States. This is a clear and present danger. We're in the middle of a war. We need soldiers. And you are threatening our ability to win that war by telling people not to do this. And so the time, place, and manner matter. If he does that today, there's no draft going on. He's saying that the draft is equivalent to slavery. Okay, he says that today and he hands out these leaflets today. It's not a problem because there's not a draft. He's not impeding on the United States winning or losing a war. 1919, different story. We're in the middle of this World War I, and he is hindering the United States' ability to win that war, is what the Supreme Court is going to define. Okay, so that's freedom of speech. The second court case that we need to know here is about symbolic speech. Remember Tinker versus Des Moines? We've got some students who go to a school in Des Moines, Iowa, and they're going to wear armbands to protest the war in Vietnam. They're asked to stop wearing them. They do. They come back the next day, wear them again. Eventually, they're suspended because they are continuing to wear these armbands. And they fought the suspension and eventually won in the Supreme Court. They said that the students were not causing a disruption in the school. They said that you cannot take away a student's political beliefs. And they also said that the right to symbolic speech exists, that the students had a right, they were speaking symbolically, and they were not disrupting the educational process. They are allowed to wear those armbands. Okay, so those are two freedom of speech cases, and then we move on to freedom of the press. Remember, we got the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers are going to be leaked to the New York Times and the Washington Post. And so Nixon's administration is trying to stop the publication of these. And so this would be prior restraint, stopping something from being written before it's even written. Okay, and so the government was told by the Supreme Court, you do not have the right to block these publications, that freedom of the press is important to a free democracy, and shame on you for letting these documents get out. You should have better protection on them. Since you didn't, this is kind of your penance. And so remember, this Constitution, not the Constitution, the Supreme Court instead. The Supreme Court is going to usually err on the side of free press in prior restraint cases. All right, so moving on, then we've got the right to bear arms in DC versus Heller. We kind of shift from a point in time where we did not really recognize an individual right to bear arms. We allowed people to have arms, but we also recognized the right of the government to kind of confiscate those if needed. But DC versus Heller, we're going to see the individual right to bear arms for the purpose of self-defense. And then we're going to move forward to our court case that we care about, McDonald versus Chicago. Remember, Chicago is going to require residents to obtain a license to possess handguns within the city limits. And then they denied all of the applicants for these licenses, so effectively banning handguns in the city limits. And so the Supreme Court is going to selectively incorporate, we're going to talk about that in just a second, going to selectively incorporate the right to bear arms. So that means they are going to force the states to start following what the Bill of Rights says. So remember, before we said that the Bill of Rights only pertains to the national government, but now we're going to start applying it to the states. And they're going to start applying the Second Amendment right to bear arms to the states as well. So if we were asked about the where was this at in the Constitution, what we're looking at is we're looking at. Sorry, a text came through as this was going. I'm trying not to read that. I'm trying to talk to you guys. So we're looking at the Second Amendment through the 14th Amendment, okay? So next thing we want to look at is the United States has always had to try to kind of balance individual freedom and public order. That's 3.6. And so the death penalty cannot be administered to people who are minors, cannot be, so that'd be under 18 when you committed the crime. So you could be 16, they caught you at 18, can't be given the death penalty for that. You cannot, we do not give the death penalty to people who are considered intellectually disabled. So it'd be an IQ generally of below, I think it's 70, could be a different number. I think it's 70. And then for crimes that are not murders, you have to have a homicide if there is if you're going to have the death penalty. So let's talk about selective incorporation. Selective incorporation is going to apply the Bill of Rights to the states. Now, we start doing this many years ago, but what's going to happen is each clause within the Bill of Rights has to be applied. They have to be incorporated. And so we're going to selectively, we're going to pick this clause and apply it to the states now. We're going to take this. So we're selecting each clause as cases come forward, okay? And so what we're looking at here is we're applying the 14th Amendment. And here's the problem with here's what's going on. 14th Amendment is, remember, it's one of our Civil War amendments. 14th Amendment says that states cannot deny citizens of life, liberty, or property without due process, okay? And so what's happening here is that this is supposed to be protecting newly freed slaves in the South, okay? But what's going to happen is it's going to be applied to later. States cannot deny liberty. And liberties, remember, our civil liberties are those Bill of Rights, right? And so now we're going to shift the meaning of the 14th Amendment. And that's what's happening here, okay? And we're going to be using the due process clause within the 14th Amendment to do that. And so we are going to start applying the Bill of Rights selectively, case by case, right? Clause by clause to the states. And that's what we're going to be starting to see here with selective incorporation. Okay, so the next thing we wanted to look at here is due process and the rights of the accused. And so due process is going to be you have that right to a trial. If you're being accused of a crime, you have the right to some kind of a process. And so that in America it looks like a trial. We have a couple things to look at here. We have the Miranda rule. Remember, the Miranda rule is going to be you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can't be used against you, etc. The second part of that is going to come from Gideon versus Wainwright, which is a case that is going to be selectively incorporated. Okay, so Gideon versus Wainwright. Remember, we've got a man who has broken into a billiard hall and robbed the vending machine, and he asked for a lawyer at his first trial. The judge says you have not committed a capital crime, therefore we do not supply you one. You're welcome to go get one, but we don't supply you with one. Well, he said, hey, I'm a poor guy, I can't afford one. So he goes forward with the crime, he goes to jail, and from jail he says, this was wrong. If I was rich, I could have gotten a lawyer. If I'm poor, I don't get one. It's not how this is supposed to work. The Supreme Court is going to agree with him, and they are going to tell the states that they must provide counsel through the Sixth Amendment, through the 14th Amendment, okay? So they're going to apply the Sixth Amendment right to counsel through the 14th Amendment due process clause to the states, okay? And so that is going to give us the second part of that Miranda warning. So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. But then you have the right to an attorney, and if you can't afford one, we'll give you one, all right? And so you know all that from Law & Order, whatever shows you're watching. We also have the exclusionary rule. The exclusionary rule is going to be selectively incorporated to the states. The exclusionary rule, if police illegally obtain evidence, it can't be used against you at a trial. And so, looking through here, I'm going to go to 3.10 here, social movements and equal protection. Remember the difference between civil liberties, civil rights. Civil liberties are we're going to see those in the Bill of Rights. Civil liberties, that's what's listed there. Civil rights then are going to be rights that are going to protect groups from discrimination. So if I'm denying you the right to free speech or something like that because I don't like you, that's an individual liberty. If I'm denying you the right to speak because of your race, because of your religion, something like that, that's part of your civil rights now, okay? You're being denied because you're a part of this group. So groups are rights, individuals are liberties, okay? So the second part of the 14th Amendment is going to look at, what we're going to look at is the Equal Protection Clause. I kept wanting to say Establishment Clause, and I knew that was First Amendment. The Equal Protection Clause. Okay, so the Equal Protection Clause is going to come into play when we're looking at civil rights. And so the Equal Protection Clause says that all states have to give equal protection under the law. So if you're going to have this set of laws for this people, you have to allow other people in as well. Okay, and so this is going to be kind of the what King is going to argue for in Letters from Birmingham Jail. They just want that equal protection under the law. They want the same rights that everybody else has. They want all men to be created equal, okay? They want to be part of we the people. And that's what he is arguing for in Letter from Birmingham Jail. Remember that we're going to go through all of the court cases as well as all of the founding documents. I think it's in May, but we're going to do that in a remote one. Make sure that you join us for that. And so the social movements have been expanded. The Civil Rights era, we have the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is going to ban discrimination in public accommodations. Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is going to get rid of things like the literacy tests and other obstacles to voting. And we're going to have Title IX, which is going to ban sex discrimination in places that are receiving federal funding. And so our big court case here, I'm trying to see all the big things that I'm missing here. The big court case is going to be Brown versus Board of Education, of course, where black students in several states were denied admittance to white schools because they were black. And so this is going to be the court case that desegregates the public schools in the South. And they're going to do so through the 14th Amendment. And they're going to overturn Plessy versus Ferguson, which was the precedent set in the 1800s that said that separate but equal was okay. They're here saying separate but equal is completely not okay, that separate is inherently unequal. What else? Affirmative action will be the last thing. Affirmative action, remember, is going to give preferential treatment to members of historically disadvantaged groups. And we're looking at in education places, we're looking at employment places, things along those lines. Remember, there's kind of two interpretations that people will have for the Constitution. There's a colorblind interpretation. Colorblind is going to say that you cannot do anything that's going to help minorities or hurt minorities. Okay, you cannot make a law that's going to do something specifically for one group. That the Constitution and the law should be colorblind, and so therefore we should be respecting that and not doing anything for or against. Where a race-conscious interpretation is going to say we can't pass any laws that are going to hurt minorities, but we can do things to help them. And that's what we're looking at for Unit 3. So right at that 20-minute mark, that was my goal, my friends. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you in class, and remember, do something for someone else today. Be well.